Ladies and gentlemen, in this fleeting existence, we are often reminded of how little control we have over the circumstances that shape our lives. The Stoics taught us to understand that the nature of life is impermanent, and with this understanding, we come to embrace the beautiful paradox of love. In a world where time never stops, where moments drift like leaves in the wind, love, too, is a transient force, powerful yet temporary, profound yet impermanent. Life, in its essence, is fleeting. The Stoics, such as Marcus Aurelius and Seneca, constantly remind us of the transient nature of existence. We come into this world like a wave on the ocean, appearing for a brief moment before inevitably returning to the vastness from which we came. Every encounter we have, every moment we live, is part of a flow of time that we cannot control. Love, too, is subject to this truth. It is not exempt from the impermanence that governs all aspects of life. The Stoic understanding of impermanence encourages us to appreciate each moment without attachment, to live with the awareness that everything, including the relationships we hold dear, is temporary. In this context, love becomes something to cherish deeply, but not to possess or cling to. The people we meet along the way, the love we share with them, may only last for a moment in the grand scheme of life, but the experiences and lessons they impart upon us endure much longer, if we choose to allow them to. This understanding of love's transience is not meant to invoke sorrow or a sense of loss, but rather to inspire gratitude and presence. To love fully, deeply, and with intention is not to create a permanent bond, but to immerse oneself in the experience of connection in the here and now. Stoicism teaches us that attachment to permanence is a source of suffering, because it sets us up for disappointment when change inevitably occurs. Love, when viewed through this lens, becomes something to savor in its current form, rather than something to grasp onto for fear of its passing. This notion can be applied to all forms of love, romantic, familial, and even friendships. We are all on a journey, and the paths we walk are constantly shifting. People enter and exit our lives, and each person serves a unique purpose in that journey. Whether they are with us for a season or for a lifetime, they leave their mark on us, shaping us, teaching us, and transforming us in ways we might not always fully realize. When we embrace the fleeting nature of relationships, we also free ourselves from the burden of expecting them to last forever. Instead, we come to understand that each person's presence is a gift, no matter how long or short it may be. In romantic relationships, this Stoic perspective invites us to love without the need for permanence, the ideal of a once-in-a-lifetime. Love becomes not one of eternal attachment, but one of deep connection in the moment, understanding that the love we share with another is as much about the time we spend together as it is about what we learn from one another. The beauty of love lies not in its ability to endure forever, but in its ability to bring us joy and meaning in the time that it exists. The Stoics' focus on the present moment also teaches us that love, like all things, is precious because it is temporary. This does not mean that we should live in constant fear of losing it, but rather that we should live with an acute awareness of its value in the present. By understanding that nothing in life lasts forever, we become more attuned to the richness of each experience, each conversation, and each shared moment. The idea of once-in-a-lifetime love is not about longing for what is lost, but appreciating deeply what is here, now, before it, too, fades into memory. Embracing the transient nature of love allows us to release our expectations and attachments to the future. It teaches us to accept the ebb and flow of our relationships with grace and gratitude, to honor what we have when we have it, and to let go when it is time to do so. By doing so, we allow ourselves to experience love in its purest form, not as something to possess, but as something to enjoy, to learn from, and to be grateful for, regardless of its duration. And in this acceptance of impermanence, we find peace. Love, in the Stoic view, is not merely an emotion that sweeps us away, but a practice grounded in virtue. The Stoics believed that the cultivation of wisdom, courage, and justice were the true sources of fulfillment, and when these virtues are applied to our relationships, they transform love into a force that uplifts not just the individuals involved, but also the world around them. Love, in its truest sense, is not about seeking to be loved or adored, but about loving in a way that aligns with our highest principles, acting with wisdom, integrity, and respect for the other person's dignity. The wisdom that Stoicism encourages is the wisdom of seeing love for what it truly is, something that requires reflection, not mere passion. It asks us to love with understanding, to recognize that each person, including our partners, is an individual with their own values, desires, flaws, and strengths. Love, when rooted in wisdom, is not blind or possessive. It sees the other for who they are and respects their freedom. It encourages a deep acceptance of each other's imperfections, while also fostering an environment in which both individuals can grow. Wisdom in love asks us to continually question our motives, to ask ourselves whether we are acting from a place of self-interest or from a genuine desire to elevate the other person's well-being. Love also requires courage, the courage to be vulnerable, the courage to face the challenges that inevitably arise, and the courage to remain steadfast even when things are difficult. The Stoics believed that true strength lies not in avoiding discomfort, but in enduring hardship with dignity. In a romantic relationship, this courage manifests when we face the difficult times together, when we stand by each other even when external forces try to pull us apart. Love, when nurtured by courage, becomes a shared journey, one where both partners are willing to confront their fears and insecurities, not with avoidance, but with an open heart and mind. In the face of adversity, love becomes a test of resilience, and each challenge overcome strengthens the bond between two people. Justice, too, plays a pivotal role in the Stoic conception of love. To love with justice means to treat the other person with fairness and respect, to ensure that the relationship is based on equality rather than power dynamics or manipulation. Love rooted in justice understands that each individual has a right to autonomy, and this respect for personal boundaries and individual freedoms is what creates the foundation for a healthy and thriving relationship. When we love with justice, we are committed to the mutual flourishing of both ourselves and our partner. We are not seeking to possess or control, but rather to foster an environment where both individuals can fully realize their potential individually and together. Furthermore, Stoic love does not demand that we sacrifice our own well-being for the sake of another. While selflessness is important, it must not come at the cost of our integrity or self-respect. To love virtuously is to recognize that we, too, are deserving of love and respect. This understanding allows us to give without losing ourselves in the process. By embodying the virtues of wisdom, courage, and justice, we ensure that our love remains balanced, healthy, and sustainable, rather than one-sided or dependent on the other person to fulfill our emotional needs. In romantic love, when these virtues are practiced, we begin to build something that is more than just an emotional bond. We create a relationship that is rooted in shared values, mutual respect, and a commitment to each other's growth. It is a love that is not contingent on external circumstances, but one that is based on deep internal understanding and a willingness to cultivate the qualities that lead to a flourishing life for both individuals involved. A love grounded in Stoic virtue transcends the fleeting nature of romantic infatuation. It becomes a lasting connection, not because it is immune to challenges or change, but because it is built on the timeless foundation of character, mutual respect, and a shared commitment to personal and collective growth. In the Stoic world, emotional resilience is a key aspect of living a virtuous and fulfilling life. The Stoics believed that external events, whether joyous or painful, are beyond our control, but our response to these events lies entirely within our power. When we apply this wisdom to love, it becomes clear that our emotional reactions to love, whether in the form of joy, heartbreak, or longing, must be approached with the same calmness and rationality that the Stoics applied to all areas of life. Emotions are, in many ways, natural responses to the world around us. Love, in its most intense form, often brings with it powerful emotions that can overwhelm even the most composed individuals. Yet, the Stoics remind us that while we cannot always control the rise of these emotions, we can control how we respond to them. To respond with emotional resilience is to recognize that our feelings, though valid, do not have to govern our actions or our inner peace. This is where Stoicism's emphasis on the dichotomy of control becomes particularly relevant. In the context of love, we often find ourselves emotionally attached to an outcome, whether that is the enduring nature of the relationship, the reciprocation of feelings, or the ability to change the other person. However, Stoicism teaches that our attachment to specific outcomes only leads to unnecessary suffering. In love, just as in life, we must learn to accept that many factors are outside our control. We cannot control another person's feelings, their actions, or their choices. What we can control is our own emotional response and our ability to navigate these challenges with wisdom and inner strength. For example, in the face of a relationship ending, Stoic emotional resilience calls upon us to face the pain without being consumed by it. Heartbreak is an inevitable part of life, yet it does not have to define us. The Stoic mindset teaches us to accept the pain as part of the natural order of things, impermanent and fleeting. In recognizing that nothing in life, including love, lasts forever, we can view loss not as an unbearable burden, but as a part of the larger ebb and flow of existence. Rather than dwelling in sorrow or clinging to the past, we can choose to process our emotions with dignity and strength, understanding that our suffering is not a permanent condition, but a temporary state that will eventually pass. Emotional resilience in love also means cultivating a mindset that is not dependent on the constant validation or affection of another. Love, from a Stoic perspective, should not be a means to fulfill our emotional needs or to make us feel whole. We must learn to find contentment and peace within ourselves, independent of external circumstances or the affection of others. When we love without the expectation that the other person will complete us or provide us with emotional stability, we free ourselves from the vulnerability of emotional dependency. We understand that our happiness does not rely on the presence or absence of another person, but rather on our own ability to maintain inner equilibrium. Moreover, Stoicism teaches us to maintain perspective during emotional upheaval. When love becomes a source of emotional turbulence, whether from conflict, misunderstandings, or rejection, the Stoics encourage us to step back and gain perspective on the larger picture. Emotions are fleeting, and they often distort our sense of reality in the heat of the moment. By practicing mindfulness and detachment, we allow ourselves to observe our emotions without being controlled by them. This doesn't mean suppressing our feelings or pretending they don't exist. Rather, it means acknowledging them and then choosing how to respond in a way that aligns with our values and virtues. Resilience in love also entails the ability to forgive and move forward. Often, relationships face challenges, whether from misunderstandings, mistakes, or unmet expectations. A Stoic response to these challenges is not to hold onto grudges or harbor resentment, but to forgive both ourselves and others. We understand that everyone is fallible, and part of love's journey is navigating the mistakes and missteps along the way. Rather than clinging to the past or allowing bitterness to poison our hearts, emotional resilience calls us to release those negative emotions and focus on the present, learning from the experience and growing stronger in the process. Ultimately, emotional resilience in love is about cultivating the ability to face the full range of human emotions, joy, pain, passion, loss, with equanimity. It is about understanding that love, in all its forms, will bring both pleasure and hardship, and that our response to these experiences is what defines our emotional well-being. By practicing the Stoic virtues of wisdom, courage, and self-control, we can navigate love's challenges not with fear or attachment, but with grace and strength, knowing that our inner peace remains intact regardless of the circumstances outside our control. In Stoic philosophy, the concept of fate, often called the logos or the rational order of the universe, occupies a central place. Everything, according to the Stoics, unfolds according to nature's grand design. The events in our lives, both joyous and painful, are not random but necessary components of a larger cosmic order that we may not fully understand. When applied to love, this understanding transforms the way we perceive the people who enter our lives. The person we call our once in a lifetime was not an accident, not a mere coincidence, but someone fated to cross our path for a reason embedded deep within the fabric of existence. To view love through the lens of fate is not to romanticize it in a passive or mystical way. Rather, it is to recognize that everything in life happens as it must. The Stoics did not believe in resisting fate, but in aligning ourselves with it, what they called amor fati the love of fate. So when someone special comes into your life, someone who shifts your perspective, challenges you, supports you, or changes you, the Stoic response is not to question why, but to accept that their presence was necessary. Their influence, whether temporary or lasting, was part of your natural course. When a relationship flourishes, we are grateful for its gifts. When it ends, we are not to despair, but to understand that it ended as it was meant to. The duration of a connection does not determine its value. Some encounters, even those that are brief, carry a depth of meaning that spans a lifetime. In the Stoic framework, this is not cause for regret, but for reflection and appreciation. The love shared was not a possession lost, but a chapter completed, one that played its intended role in the larger story of your life. Fate, in this view, is not cruel, even when it takes from us those we deeply cherish. It simply unfolds as it must. The Stoics teach us that true wisdom lies in distinguishing between what is within our control and what is not. The appearance of a once-in-a-lifetime person in your life and their departure may fall into the category of what lies beyond your influence. But what remains firmly within your control is how you respond, how you remember them, how you allow their presence to shape your growth, and how you carry forward the values they may have helped you uncover. By accepting that love is woven into the pattern of fate, we are relieved of the burden of what if. We no longer need to agonize over whether things could have turned out differently, whether we should have done more, said more, or held on tighter. If it ended, it was meant to. If it lasted, that too was by design. The Stoic approach to love through fate is one of trust, not blind optimism, but rational acceptance that the order of things is ultimately good, even when we do not yet see its goodness clearly. This perspective also allows us to hold on to love without being consumed by it. We can love deeply and still be prepared to let go, because we understand that the person was given to us for a time, not to keep, but to experience. And when we no longer walk beside them, we do not curse fate. We thank it for allowing our paths to cross. In that gratitude, we find peace, even amidst the ache of absence. Thus, to say he was her once in a lifetime is not to mourn a lost opportunity, but to recognize the profound design in his presence. He was not meant to stay forever. He was meant to come precisely when he did, to offer what he did, and to leave when the time came. This is the wisdom of fate, not that it always gives us what we want, but that it always gives us what we need. And when we align our hearts with that understanding, we begin to love not with desperation, but with reverence, for the moment, for the memory, and for the truth that all things come exactly as they should. The Stoic pursuit of self-reflection and inner peace is not only a path to personal virtue, but also the foundation for meaningful and stable relationships. Before one can truly love another in a healthy and enduring way, one must first know and understand themselves. The Stoics believed that without a deep and honest awareness of our own nature, our desires, our weaknesses, our values, we are not equipped to engage with others in a virtuous and balanced manner. Love that emerges from confusion, insecurity, or emotional imbalance is unstable and often leads to dependency, conflict, and pain. But love that arises from a mind at peace, from a heart that is whole, carries strength, clarity, and endurance. To know oneself is to engage in continuous introspection. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations often reflected on his own conduct, thoughts, and intentions. He did not view this as a self-centered exercise, but as a necessary discipline to live wisely and in accordance with nature. In the context of love, this same practice helps us identify the true motivations behind our attraction to others. Are we seeking comfort or escape? Are we pursuing validation? Or are we connecting with another person from a place of sincere admiration and mutual respect? When individuals enter relationships without having confronted their own insecurities or without cultivating inner peace, they often place an unconscious burden on their partner to fulfill needs that cannot be satisfied externally. The Stoics would call this a form of slavery to passion, a surrendering of reason to unchecked emotions and desires. This not only undermines the relationship, but also disrupts the serenity of both people involved. The healthiest form of love, by contrast, is one in which each person is whole, not searching for completion, but for companionship grounded in shared virtue and mutual understanding. Inner peace allows us to be steady, especially when relationships face inevitable challenges. In the early stages of romantic love, emotions may run high, and it is easy to get swept up in affection and infatuation. But those who practice self-awareness remain grounded. They enjoy love's warmth, but they are not consumed by it. When difficulties arise, misunderstandings, distance, or change, those who have cultivated inner tranquility do not react with fear, jealousy, or desperation. They are able to respond with patience, clarity, and maturity because their peace is not dependent on another's behavior or constant presence. Moreover, self-reflection helps us recognize the kind of love that is truly good for us. The Stoics emphasized the importance of aligning with what is rational and natural. If a relationship is harmful, dishonest, or driven by fleeting passions, the Stoic would advise letting it go, not with bitterness, but with calm acceptance. This discernment can only come from honest evaluation of one's own values and priorities. When we know what kind of life we want to live and what kind of person we strive to be, we are better able to choose partners who support that path rather than derail it. A person who has cultivated inner peace does not seek to possess their partner. They do not try to control or mold the other to fit their expectations. Instead, they love with freedom and acceptance, allowing the other to be fully themselves. This kind of love creates space for both individuals to grow without fear. It nurtures not just emotional connection, but spiritual alignment, a unity of two souls who are already complete and who choose to walk together not out of necessity, but from shared intention. In the end, Stoicism teaches that true love does not arise from need, but from virtue. When we know ourselves, when we are calm within, love becomes not a desperate grasping, but a quiet sharing. The other person is not our savior, nor our identity, but a companion, someone we respect, admire, and cherish, not because we must, but because we choose to. And in that choice, born from reflection and peace, love becomes both a refuge and a practice of enduring strength. The Stoic emphasis on the present moment is one of the most profound and transformative principles when applied to love. Unlike the distractions of the past or the anxieties of the future, the present is the only place where life truly unfolds. The Stoics taught that to live well, one must live now, not in anticipation, not in memory, but in full awareness of what is before us. This teaching becomes especially powerful when we think about love, especially a love so rare and meaningful that we call it once in a lifetime. Too often, people fall into the trap of taking love for granted while they have it, only to recognize its worth once it has passed. The Stoics warn against this backward gaze, which robs us of our peace and keeps us chained to something we can no longer change. Likewise, they caution against forward, facing desires that keep us chasing illusions of how love might be in some perfect future. Instead, they direct our attention to the present, because it is in the now that love is experienced, expressed, and most deeply appreciated. To love in the present moment is to pay attention. It is to look into the eyes of the one you care about and truly see them, not as an ideal or a memory, but as they are now. It is to be grateful for their presence, for the shared laughter, the quiet understanding, the simple yet profound gestures that make up a day, a touch, a word, a shared silence. These are the small pieces of eternity that exist right now, and they are easy to overlook if our minds are elsewhere. The Stoics viewed gratitude as essential to virtue. In love, this gratitude becomes the anchor that keeps us from drifting into dissatisfaction or longing. If we are grateful for what we have while we have it, we become less likely to mourn what we believe we have missed. Gratitude for the present moment transforms love from something we fear losing into something we are blessed to experience. When we learn to say, "This is enough," we begin to truly understand what it means to love in a Stoic way, not with attachment or desperation, but with fullness and peace. Moreover, living in the present allows us to love without fear. Fear of loss, fear of change, fear of the unknown. All these anxieties pull us away from the purity of now. The Stoics believed that fear stems from our attachment to things we cannot control, and love, being one of the most vulnerable human experiences, often brings with it a fear of its end. But when we remain anchored in the present, we are able to let go of that fear. We understand that we do not possess the future and we do not own the people we love. We only have this moment, and that is more than enough. There is a quiet strength in loving without needing forever. To look at someone and say, "You are my once in a lifetime," not because you expect them to be there forever, but because you are aware of the depth and rarity of the moment you share. This awareness doesn't diminish the experience, it enriches it. It heightens your attention, sharpens your appreciation, and brings a sacred stillness to every interaction. The Stoics would say that we are not owed any of life's gifts, including love. Each moment with someone we care for is borrowed time, granted by fate and impossible to repeat. This awareness invites us to be present not just in body, but in soul, to listen more fully, to speak more gently, to touch more sincerely. When we live and love in this way, we make peace with impermanence, and we transform fleeting experiences into timeless truths. So when we speak of a love that was once in a lifetime, let it not be a cry of loss, but a song of gratitude, because in that once, in that fleeting but sacred now, everything was whole. And when we truly live in that now, we carry the fullness of that love with us always, not as something that slipped away, but as something that was completely and gloriously lived. In the end, he was her once in a lifetime, not because their love was meant to last forever, but because it held profound meaning in the time they shared. Stoic philosophy teaches us that love, like all things, is fleeting, but it is through embracing this impermanence that we find its true value. By loving with presence, wisdom, and gratitude, she learned to appreciate each moment without clinging to it. In letting go with grace, she didn't lose what they had. She carried forward the strength, clarity, and growth that their love brought her. He will always be her once in a lifetime, not because of how long it lasted, but because of how deeply it transformed her. Through this love, she learned the essence of living fully, embracing both joy and loss with wisdom and peace.